Hey everybody, welcome to Why We Love Horror 3.0, episode 11. Today, it's kind of like the perfect storm. It's topics we've said we love. It's topics that people know we love. But anyway, just introducing first my co-hosts Abby Brooks, Aaron Brooks. Guys, how are we doing this week?
Doing good. This movie was not what I was expecting in like a good way. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yep. I think some people might argue it's not horror, but it definitely is. There's a ton of horror elements, and it actually spikes up definitely towards the end. But go ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. When we said perfect storm for we, or it's a perfect storm for us, it is a perfect storm for me. Specifically, A24 and Nicolas Cage are two of my favorite things together at last. We found out, or I don't know if everybody else knows, but Nicolas Cage did announce he's only going to do about 3 or 4 more movies, and then he's going to go over to TV. So whether or not he really does that or not, I treasure all the Nicolas Cage that we can get in. I've been looking forward to this since the second I knew it existed, and it would be interesting to find out if it was a dream scenario or a nightmare for me. So,
you said it. So,
all I do is dream of you the whole night through.
What?
I'm sorry. Don't I know you?
I don't know. Do you?
With the dawn, I still go on dreaming of you.
Anyway, the reason that you've been on my mind is because you keep popping up in my dreams.
Really?
You're every thought, you're everything, you're every song I ever sing.
Paul? Oh my God.
Summer, winter, autumn, and spring, and we're there more than 24 hours a day.
I wish I was the one people were dreaming about.
Me too.
Yeah. No, it's something.
Skies are gray, skies are blue, morning, noon, and nighttime too. All I do the whole day through is dream of you.
That's dream scenario. The one thing that struck me when I watched the trailer the first time, I think maybe I might have been with you guys the first time I saw the trailer. I'm not sure, but it was definitely around one of those times that they got there's a lot of people in this movie. There's Michael Cera's here, Dylan Baker's here, the daughter from Unbreakable, Kimmy Schmidt, is in this movie. Everybody's in this movie. So I was definitely intrigued by the cast they had in this movie to start with. What do you guys think?
Yeah, no, I was very intrigued from the jump. I thought that the trailer did a good job of disguising what this movie really was as well, which may be some people's criticism of it. And I actually enjoy that when I do watch a trailer. I like to be misled by the trailer a little bit. And I'm glad it wasn't just kind of a simple, stupid comedy about what if you started showing up in people's dreams? Wouldn't that be wacky? It got very existential, very deep, I think, with the subject, and kind of maybe bit off a little more than it can chew, but I don't really have a problem with that. That's not going to be a criticism I hold against a movie as hard as going the basic easy route. So, which this movie definitely didn't do. It did have a recognizable cast, but not distractingly recognizable besides Michael Cera.
Tim Meadows.
Yeah, well, Tim Meadows, it's good that he got work after Son of Zor, or whatever that Zorn show from Fox was that unrightly got canceled after 8 episodes. I liked it. I even know I forgot the name of it. But
we're not going to spoil anything yet, but if you want to just kind of give the synopsis that you would give to somebody to watch the movie without spoiling any twists, what's the synopsis here?
So Nicolas Cage plays a college professor who dreamed of bigger aspirations and ended up settling on being a professor to teaching a bunch of college kids who aren't really listening to what he's talking about. And then he starts to gain relevance by showing up in people's dreams. From there on, it turns into a dream or a nightmare scenario, depending on how you look at it. And things kind of spiral from there.
That's exactly right.
It's existential horror, which is horror in my life, at least. So I don't know about everybody else, but
I think a lot of the best horror movies this year, if we're counting Beau is Afraid as horror, which I do, and I think you two do, existential horror is a big deal now.
If Beau is Afraid counts as horror, this counts as horror. So we're counting as horror because Beau is Afraid is my favorite horror movie of the year.
Fair enough. Abby, anything to add?
No, I mean, I agree with all of that. I definitely agree. Like so I didn't really know a whole lot about this movie. I honestly don't even remember seeing the trailer for this movie. I just remember the two of you kind of talking about it. I'm like, oh, I should know what this movie is. But I do agree. Like when I was watching this movie, like the first thing that popped up in my head was this really reminds me of like a lesser Beau is Afraid. Like it's really taken down a couple notches from what Beau is Afraid is. But the general feelings and anxiety that you have during the movie is pretty much the same. It's very much so, like, I like to call it cringe horror because it's very, just all of it's very cringy. He's put in a lot of scenarios where you just, I don't know, it escalates and you get anxious about it. It's just very, which I do like movies like that. So that was my first thought when I was watching this, is that it's very much so like Beau is Afraid, just taken down like a couple of notches. It's not as insane as that movie, but it's very much similar.
And produced by Ari Aster. So.
Of course, makes sense, right? And I'm just throwing this up really, not that I'm spoiling anything huge about the movie, but like it starts from like the very beginning, and like it's a theme of the movie, and like I take it personal, kind of. I think Aaron, you're good at compartmentalizing this because you don't think it bothers you. But the one thing about this movie that kind of bothered me is everybody treats this guy like shit. Like they treat him so horribly throughout to the point that it's like unrealistically unfair how he's treated throughout the movie. But another thing I noticed about this movie is like there's I don't think it's necessarily homage, but it's like maybe like, you know, unintentional homage. The very beginning of the movie when the daughter's dreaming and he's just like raking leaves and stuff starts falling out of the sky. Did you get like huge Nope vibes?
I mean,
a little bit.
Yeah.
Now that you say it, maybe.
Not when I watched it. I mean, things are falling and rising, but no.
Yeah. I was like, this is Nope. And then the movie starts. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, so the movie, like there's, I think one of the huge strengths of the movie is just like the cuts between dream and reality. And they don't tell you. Yeah. Like there's sometimes you're watching a dream, like, is this real? Like there's the scene where he's jogging and you're like, is this real? And like, did he really get shot with a crossbow? What's going on?
Yeah.
And that goes on throughout the entire movie. And it's different characters' dreams. Like pretty much every character, you get to see their dreams, which is pretty cool. So it starts off, you know, he's just a regular, like, schlubby, nerdy kind of professor. He's a middle-aged guy. I wonder, was this written for Nicolas Cage? Because I can't even imagine anybody else playing this role.
I agree. I couldn't see anybody else.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it was, but if it was, they casted the perfect person in Nicolas Cage from the Nicolas Cage fan club. So
yeah, I honestly, like, having watched the movie, like I can't picture any other person, like even after watching Beau is Afraid, I don't think Joaquin Phoenix could have pulled this off as Beau. It's like it's such a Nicolas Cage character, and I guess that's a thing that people will talk about for generations to come. This is like another Nicolas Cage character.
It is, but he wasn't like going over the top. Like that was one of the things that I said is people say when you have like the crazy Nicolas Cage where he's like screaming and going like way over the top, you don't get that in this. Like it's definitely maybe a little, but like not like, I don't know. It's not like too much, I guess. Like I feel like it's just the right amount. And I feel like he was, I don't know, he didn't go too crazy for this role, which I really appreciated.
I think there's only like two scenes where it's like really crazy, like over the top. The one where he's like apologizing on the internet, and then when he breaks into his daughter's school performance. Aside from that, it's pretty well contained. It's like it goes on the side of the column where it's like he's one of the greatest actors ever. Not like he just takes any role that's given to him. He's on this side in this movie.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting because the director is the writer Christopher Borgli, I believe is how you say his name.
I think it's Borgli,
Christopher Borgli. And he, I know he originally wrote this movie for Ari Aster to direct. And I can understand why Ari Aster kind of turned it down and was like, I already got my own with Beau is Afraid. And honestly, he made the right choice with that. And I do think that this was a good movie to be written and directed by the same person because they were able to capture the tone with their acting and everything that they wanted. And with this movie, as I was watching it, I always turn off my phone and everything like that. So like I'm not looking at a clock or even thinking about a clock. But I really did feel like the whole movie, even when it was in reality or not, did feel like you were almost in a dream where I kind of lost track of where I was in the movie as it was going, to where when it ended, it felt abrupt, yet it didn't feel like, oh, it ended at the wrong spot. I just had no idea we were at the ending when we got to the end. And I actually really do appreciate all 3 acts. I know that for a lot of people, the first 2 acts are going to work way better than the 3rd act, but I honestly really liked the note it ended on.
I would argue this movie is like it's 3 acts and like an epilogue, kind of, because this whole story kind of wraps up, and then you get to see like the aftermath of society after Paul, kind of. So I don't know if that's necessarily if film students are going to shit on me for saying that, but I feel it's structured beyond 3 acts. I would say.
Yeah, no, it could be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Abby, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I definitely agree, and I mean, I really love the ending as well. I think it does work really well as like first, second, third, however you want to describe it. I thought it was all very paced well too. Yeah, I thought it's a very decent, movie, especially in the pacing and the ending.
Right. So, like you said about the pacing, like it does start off kind of like benign, like he's showing up in everybody's dreams and he's not doing anything. He's kind of put off by the fact that he's not doing anything. He's like even in dreams where people are in trouble and he's just like a bystander. Mm-hmm. And like that's kind of the first thing where it's like it's a novelty. He has like his class comes in and he puts off class and doesn't ask me anything session. People start getting interested in him. Michael Cera's company Thoughts or whatever. What's his name in the movie? I forget. Trent. Yeah, Trent's company Thoughts. They want to offer him a contact with Sprite. They want him to meet President Obama, and he still finds a way, I guess. And this is kind of like an Ari Aster thing too, where like he's more concerned about writing his book and being taken seriously, and he sees this as like a threat to this thing that was never going to happen anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's definitely a tragic character, and overly so, like a tragic character. They make no bones about painting him as like a loser. I mean, they call him a loser. I don't think he's a loser. He's loser-esque, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's especially tragic because, again, in this first part of the movie, when he is showing up in people's dreams and people are recognizing him and he almost gets this like fame about him and like everybody, wants him and like is interested in him and like what he has to say. It is really sad then from where it goes after that to where then the dreams start becoming nightmares and everybody's terrified of him and things just keep spiraling. So I think it's especially tragic because in the beginning it's like, okay, like there's this little glimmer of hope that, okay, he's going to get everything that he wanted. And, everybody is interested in him and what he has to say. And then it just kind of just ends there kind of thing.
Yeah. Nobody was ever really interested in what he had to say.
Right.
They're interested in the fact these are their dreams. And
right.
the fact that there's the whole scene that kind of like they dropped the seed in the beginning where like this lady he had gone to graduate school with is now like doing the research he wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And she winds up like fully like just taking his idea by the end of the movie as well. So life is just, we're catching him in the middle of life, passing him by. Like he's clearly settled. He's tenured. He's married. He has 2 kids. Nothing's ever going to happen to him until this thing happens to him.
Right.
And it's not what he wanted to happen to him, but he tries to leverage it into making the things he wants to happen for him, but it doesn't happen for him.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I guess before it goes into Nightmareville, though, there's probably like what I think is the best scene in the movie where there's this one character, Dylan Galula's character, who has like, he's in her dream too, but she's having a sexual dream about him. And, this is attention he doesn't normally get. So he goes back to his apartment with her. And do you guys want to talk about what happens? Because that was pretty funny.
Yeah, this is definitely the funniest scene in the movie. Like I personally love a good fart joke. And this was pretty good. And this is kind of also where the movie sort of starts to take a turn where it kind of starts painting him as like, is he like not a great guy? I mean, I think he is a good guy in the end, but so he's interviewing with Michael Cera's character, and then there's another girl, younger, who he goes back to her apartment, and she's talking about his dream, and yeah, it's this weird like sexual dream where he like breaks into her house and like attacks her, and it's really weird. And but then do you want to?
She has like a rape fantasy, and she wants him to do the rape fantasy, but he's not equipped at all.
Right.
To do.
Yeah, and then he is making a wrong decision. He's not a flawless character, so he's giving into kind of this newfound like sexual like attention that he's getting from a younger person, or from a person in general. And he can't keep the gas in. And whether it's nerves or something he ate or whatever, has a couple farts and then he kind of gets mad at himself for farting. And she's like, it's fine. And like, then he's completely distracted and he's checked out. It just, the crowd definitely reacted and laughed hard to that. And that is like, it was interesting because we saw it with a pretty good sized crowd. And I mean, the crowd was like looking for reasons to laugh in this movie. And they got a good reason here because so much of it is uncomfortable. And I think kind of stressful, like a nightmare almost, that like, you're like, when am I going to get kind of a release of the tension here? And I think a lot of the crowd, myself included, kind of thought after that, okay, we're taking off the existential like dread section and we're going to get into the fun stuff now that like we kind of saw in the trailer, and like, it's going to be more of a fun movie. And that really is the only part that's like super fun. And like, I enjoyed the whole thing, but super fun and light, I guess you could say, because
I mean, Michael Cera playing himself for the 100th time is also funny. But go ahead.
I guess I really wish they wouldn't have casted Michael Cera in this. Honestly, that would be one of my only critiques of the movie. I thought it was kind of distracting, and like he didn't add anything you haven't seen in any of his other movies, honestly. Yeah. So I'm not sure he was the right call, but yeah, that scene was really great, and it's a nightmare for obviously Paul, but
for anybody really,
for
any guy really. If you have a premature ejaculation wrapped in farts, it's pretty embarrassing for anybody.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that's about as bad as it gets.
Yeah, and then from there, then we got to get that. Then like then it's just all downhill for him, because that's when people start having dreams where he's killing them, attacking them, chasing them. And not that it took me out of the movie per se, but like the one big criticism I have of Dream Scenario is that like I'm a rational person, and I know there's tons of irrational people out there, but like I don't get that no one comes to his defense. Like there's very few people. Like Tim Meadows is a little sympathetic, his wife's a little sympathetic, I guess, but like the vast majority of people just treat him like Frankenstein's monster. Mm-hmm. Absolute shit, like committing crimes against him, everything, and no one realistically defends this guy. So that's like my one big criticism. I don't know if you guys feel the same.
Yeah. And I think looking back at it now, I would agree with that criticism, and I think it was because the writer/director was probably trying to make a point about one of the many points he was pointing out, which is cancel culture, which is definitely like a big theme of this movie. And I get what he was going for. I think he went a little over the top with making an example out of a guy with dreams. But I think because it's such an abstract kind of obtuse way of blaming somebody, I think that's part of the point he was trying to make.
Like how far it's gone.
Yeah, exactly. It's been gone so far that if someone shows up, and I mean, this is a like, I get what he was going for. I think it was a little less subtle than some of the other kind of exterior points he was trying to make.
That's fair enough. That mitigates it a little bit. And it's just like I really felt for. I mean, I think that's part of it too. Like I felt for him because it's like, Jesus, this is like so like it's so unjust, and there's no recourse. Mm-hmm. Like what he's going through is he's alone. It's such a novel thing. He's so alone. He gets like, basically, you can't come to school because the students don't want to go to your class. You can't go to your daughter's school because the other parents and the kids are afraid of you. You can't go here. You can't go there. You can't go out in public. People yell at you in public. You can't go out to eat. You can't drive your car. It's like he becomes like a prisoner, like in the outside world. And then where do we go from there?
Well, yeah, I think that's the most frustrating thing about the movie is because it's so like nobody, like you said, nobody's coming to his defense, and you're just sitting there watching this movie and you're like, you want to yell at the screen, and you're like, because you're like, he didn't do anything wrong. And he even says it himself in the movie. Technically, he did not do anything wrong. It's not his fault that he's showing up in people's dreams and doing these things. So I think that's definitely the most frustrating part of this whole movie.
And he even has a nightmare about himself. Like there's a scene where he has a nightmare where he kills himself. You know?
Right, exactly. And then he does a whole apology type of thing, which I think kind of adds on to the whole notion that the big message in this movie is, it is basically like the cancel culture type of thing where it's like, you know, you're blaming somebody who might be, you know, unjustly accused of something that they didn't do. And then there's the whole apology thing. And even with that, everybody, you know, attacks him even more, which I thought was a good point as well, which again, I mean, it's still very, very frustrating watching that because again, he's apologizing for things that he didn't actually do. And it's just, that's the whole, you're just like sitting there like, like somebody help him.
Yeah. Well, I think Bill Burr has that bit where he's like, you know, every few months society has to feed a white man to the machine. And that's basically what this movie is.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Then from there, like, the final straw is he wants to go to his daughter's play. None of the parents and kids want him around, but he decides to make a stand, the one man stand, and he basically breaks into the theater, winds up like, I don't know if he breaks the PTA lady's hand or the teacher's hand, but she's bleeding all over the place, and he's like tackled to the ground, and then it's like a slow dissolve, and now it's like he's separated and people have stopped having the dreams. And then we're in the epilogue part of the movie where it kind of resolves that even though this happened, he sparked like a scientific revolution where now they've created technology where anybody can invade anybody's dreams with consent. And he's written a very tiny book and he's in France at the end of the movie.
Yep. Basically. Yeah, no bad vibes with these advertisements either. They make sure to point that out.
That actually, that's another funny part of the movie when they're in his dream and they're literally just trying to sell him what they're just dance in these shoes and just take this pre-workout supplement. Can you please get the fuck out of my dream, please? No. But then, it all wraps up, and I think it's for given all the cringe and all the really ridiculous stuff we have, the ending is awkward but sweet. Where like he does ask his wife earlier in the movie, like, what's the fantasy you have for us, and it's you're wearing David Byrne's oversized suit and saving me, and then he does enter his wife's dream and he gives her like weird fantasy, and that's how we wrap it up, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Was there anything else about the movie you guys liked or didn't like that you want to talk about before we get into our generic-y stuff?
I do think it was Julianne Nicholson. Is that the name of the actress who plays the wife? Yeah, she's really, really good at kind of grounding this movie and has like a really important role in that respect. Also, I think that the kids are really good at acting like they despise Paul as a father. Like it's very believable there while not kind of going cartoonish. And then the other part that I wanted to point out was Paul had been wanting to go to these big wig kind of dinner parties for the longest time. And when he finally gets invited, it's by the point where all the dreams had kind of turned into nightmares for people. So no one wants to be at this dinner with him except for the husband and wife. And then she can't even like stand the sight of him there. And again, I do think that makes a good point where we have like celebrities that we don't know anything about. We've been told things about, and then eventually like just the sight of them like discuss most or a lot of people who don't know who the person is. And whether or not, and we don't really go into whether or not it's true or not. We don't care. We've made up our decision based on our perception of the person. So, I mean, it's such a, you know, it's such a hard scenario to imagine that everybody's dreams are so convincingly invaded by this person to where, you know, we're all having the same experience that makes it true. It's like, I think that's known as a Mandela effect, essentially.
They say that in the movie. Yeah, they do bring up the Mandela effect in the movie.
Yeah, and I mean that is a real psychological thing, effect. So I went with it, like, and it's definitely a movie where the mileage is going to vary on how much you're willing to buy into that, and I think that is going to vary in how much you're going to like or appreciate this movie. For some people, I think they're going to be like, that was just weird to be weird, and I didn't like it. It made me feel weird. And then for other people, it's like, that was weird and it made me feel weird. Like, and I like that. Like, so, I mean, I get it. I don't think this is a movie where there's going to be consensus one way or the other. And there's going to be some people where they just are like, there's parts I liked about it and there's parts I didn't. It bit off way more than it can chew. And I don't think it quite nailed the landing, which I think all are like completely apt kind of takes on this movie. But I just think that the way that, you know, because it kind of muddles the acts or however the segments of the movie and everything, and you don't know what's real and isn't real, but it's not being played in a way to shock you, but just in a way, I think, to, if you want to really think it over or think it through, I think was really effective and like strong. And I kind of accept the flaws with this movie, you know, because I do think it made a unique take on what could have been a really hack kind of easy route that it could have taken with the movie, where it's just like, how funny is it? Nicolas Cage is in this, Nicolas Cage is in that. Oh man, he lost his like, it didn't make it simple, and it doesn't all completely make sense. And I think it's pretty symbolic of, you know, a dream or, you know, subconscious in of itself. So I think that I appreciated that direction it took, and I appreciated the level of weird it was without pointing to itself at how weird it was and like patting itself on the back, which I think often movies that are weird do, and kind of takes away from the weirdness once you do that.
Fair enough. I'm gonna take these spoilers down. Abby, anything you wanted to add?
No, I mean, I just wanted to second about the wife/mom character. I agree. I think she was really good. And I think also in the kind of more towards the beginning, I really did like how her character, she kind of did almost defend the Nicolas Cage character for a little bit in the movie. Like, she kind of defended him. She herself, you know, because of him, was getting some perks as well. But then as his decline happened, it kind of also shows how his decline also affects those around him as well. Like the wife character, where she starts losing projects at work. She gets taken off of projects at work and stuff like that. And it also affects the kids as well. The one daughter, I think, I forget what they said, she was getting bullied or something like that because of her dad.
Dad's Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. The other girl, the mom was like, she's depressed because of him. So it's just like, it's just this whole spiral. And I really liked how it slowly showed how everybody's perception of him was then starting to affect his family and those that are close to him as well, which I thought was a really good point, and you know what they did in the movie. But yeah, I mean, everything that Aaron also said, I agree with. I think I don't think this movie is definitely weird, but I don't think it was like too weird that, you know, a regular, you know, somebody who doesn't.
It's not fully art house. It's just
right.
weird.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I don't think it's too weird. I think, for example, something like Beau is Afraid, that movie is, I would say, is a little bit more weird, and that would probably be the step up from this movie. But yeah, I think this one, it made its point. It maybe did bite off a little bit more than it could chew in like what it was trying to say and getting its point across. But then also, again, going back to the ending of the movie, I did really like him inserting himself into the wife's dream. I thought it was really sweet, and it kind of gives a little bit of hope in the end. It's kind of like a happy, ends on a happier note type of ending.
Right. Well, we'll go into our little bits at the end. Like I don't know if there's anything to fix, but I'm gonna give it a shot.
I can fix it.
I think I made my only real criticism of this movie. Like, this is very close to like being like a freaking great movie. It's close to being one of the top horror movies of the year. I really just think, and given a lot of the stuff Aaron said throughout the course of the show, like maybe I am judging it a little too harshly, but just the reaction to him is like a lot. It's a lot to take. It borders on unrealistic for me that he's by himself. Like I know he's a lonely guy. I know he's not a loner, but he's like, you know, just schlubby loser. But still, even schlubby losers have a circle of people who will be like, hey, you're treating this guy like shit. And there's nobody that does that. And that small thing that's missing kind of takes me. I'd like there to be, he needs a buddy. He needed a buddy. And I think it's a 5-star if he had a sidekick. I'll go there. But we'll move on to our ratings. You want to start? Let me start because I know Aaron should finish with being in an A24 and a Nicolas Cage movie. I'll start. This is still a great movie. I recommend it highly. I think you should go see it before it leaves theaters. I don't think this is going to be staying for a long time. We're not going to get the Barbie Oppenheimer length of stay in theaters for this movie. So see it while it's out there. It's a 4-star movie. Four tapes out of 5 for me. Just small things. Yeah, I appreciate cringe and I do like cringe, but the cringe valve on this movie is broken a little bit, and it winds up detracting. That's really it. It's a very John criticism. I'm being selfish in this 4 out of 5, but it's just a 4 out of 5. Abby,
I agree completely. I also would give it a 4 out of 5. Pretty much for the exact reasons that you had given.
Fantastic, Aaron.
Yeah. For me, it is nearly perfect a movie, and I went in with the expectations that I wanted perfect. So, like, for me to say that is not just me being like going in with high expectations is a mistake with a lot of movies, and this exceeded my expectations in a lot of ways because of kind of the amount it did, the ambition of what it was taking. It's not quite perfect for me. There is a little bit of moments I think that it is wandering a little bit too much and kind of just getting a little bit too meandering at points. But this Nicolas Cage performance, I think, is one of the better Nicolas Cage performances, his best of the year for sure, which he's had 4 or 5 movies this year. So, that's not easy.
Better than The Retirement Plan?
Better than The Retirement Plan somehow. Just edging out Butcher's Crossing. But yeah, it's 4.5 out of 5 for me. My criticism of Michael Cera aside, because I do think that he was a little bit too big of a part of the movie, even though he wasn't in a lot of the movie. But I do think that overall, the direction it was going, and then for it not to just end so hopelessly. I know this is a horror show, but still, I think it ending too hopelessly, I would have maybe felt more of the kind of frustrations you had with the movie. But I really did like the way it ended, and I thought it ended in a way that was very very positive for Nick Cage's character. So he finally kind of got a break by the end of the movie, which was nice to see. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I'm looking forward to rewatching it. I think this is one that's very rewatchable. I think there's a lot that can be picked up on more than one watch. So I'm excited to see how I react the next time I see it. But yeah, it did exceed a lot of my expectations. And I'm really glad just didn't take the simple route of it's so funny Nicolas Cage is showing up in dreams. What a loser.
All right, now we're moving on to the part of the show where we talk about if you like this movie, maybe you like these other movies. Usually we start with the person we ended on. So, Aaron, do you have any good recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, Beau's Afraid for one is automatic of recommendation. I would assume most people who've seen Dream Scenario have seen Beau's Afraid, but if you haven't, and you're looking for a little bit more horror in every sense of the word. I think Beau's Afraid is that step up, as Abby said. And another one that would go in the existential horror category. I feel like Charlie Kaufman's going to love this movie. So to recommend a Charlie Kaufman movie, I'm thinking of Ending Things. I think is definitely one where it goes into a little more of a depressive version of this, but goes into kind of reality and blending it with dreams or delusions, however you want to describe it. But yeah, I'm thinking of Ending Things came out, I think, on Netflix during the pandemic or at the beginning of the pandemic. And really, really great movie, pretty relentless. And that one, I think, ends a lot more sad by the end of it. I don't want to spoil the ending, but the way that one ends is not quite as hopeful as this one. But I do think that this feels like a Charlie Kaufman movie that wasn't written by Charlie Kaufman. I mean that in a good way. So, yeah. And then Nicolas Cage, of course, did adaptation, a Charlie Kaufman written movie. So if you want that too, there's 3.
What do you got for us, Abby?
Well, I kind of struggled with this one a little bit. Another movie besides Beau's Afraid that I thought of while I was watching this movie. It's not necessarily a horror movie, but I would still kind of recommend it. I didn't particularly enjoy it, but if you do enjoy movies like this where it's really just cringy and like you really feel for the main character and everyone's beating up on them, I think the movie is called like All My Friends Hate. What is that movie called?
All My Friends Hate Me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is a horror movie. So
it is considered horror. Okay. Well,
so good.
If you're into this, I would recommend that, even though it was not particularly my favorite movie that I've seen. If you're some other more kind of cringy horror movies that I thought of where there's a main character that it's very awkward and things just kind of start to spiral. They just want, a friend. I thought of Creep. Again, cringy character. I always recommend that movie, but that's the best that I got for recommendations.
Yeah, I had actually forgotten to think of a movie to recommend, so I was like literally racking my brain the whole time we were talking. So I went in 2 different directions. One I just came up with after you said somebody's just looking for a friend. So if you're kind of into horror movies where the main character is misunderstood, somewhat canceled for something they did, and they're just trying to make a comeback, no one, except for maybe these 2 folks over here, saw Sissy. Go see Sissy. Sissy's fantastic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, aside from that, I went another direction where like main character is a loner intellectual that bites off more than they can chew. Altered States. I just saw for the first time. For a few days ago. And that's also like somebody goes into a world where things are changing. They're inexplicable. It's turning them off to everybody. Everybody turns against that character, and it's them battling back from that. A little more science fiction-y than Dream Scenario, but definitely a fantastic watch. It's like a Cronenberg movie that is not directed by David Cronenberg.
Yeah, William Hurt too. So
yeah,
you can't go wrong with William Hurt.
William Hurt killing it in a role that you would not expect William Hurt to be in.
Yeah, that's great.
But until next time, I mean, this is the Why We Love Horror channel. Thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Go to the Facebook page. Join that. We're all there hanging out. You can ask us questions. You can make fun of us. We don't care. We welcome all comers. So this is airing on Thursday. Tomorrow night, Friday night is Why We Love Horror Trivia. It's the final round, the final match of round 1. Never Sober, Somewhat Scary. That's Anthony Tisdall, Louis Boost, the champ, taking on the skeleton crew of Jacob Cameron, Eric Ibarra-Moreta, the notable prick. And then for our singles match, Henry Confidential Sanchez taking on Antonio the Ant-Man Chavez. Is he the assassin? Antonio the Assassin Chavez? Whatever. It's a great match. Check it out. It'll be there. And then on Monday, the man who hates movie synopses, Austin Pez Howell, and myself will be talking about what movie did we watch? Oh, Sky Monster, the absolute fucking worst movie Jagged Edge has ever put out in the history, and that's saying something. But until next time, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. And this has been Why We Love Horror.
Why don't we just wait here for a little while? see what happens.